Hello, David Braid here, and I'm going to tell you about some stories that inspired my new piece of music. But first, let's listen to a few seconds of this piece by Tchaikovsky because it's responsible for the overarching theme to my new composition. This is the opening to Tchaikovsky's Travelogue String Sextet, Souvenirs de Florence, which introduced the idea to me that music could be composed as a kind of travel diary. I like the idea of converting a travelogue into music, so drawing from my own experiences as a musician on the road, I composed stories from Central Asia and the Caucasus to connect rhythm, harmony, melody, form, and timbre to artistic collaborations in Uzbekistan and Armenia in 2018 and 2019. The music breaks up into 7 parts, so I'll briefly describe the inspiration behind each story or episode. I don't drink much, but after completing an intense 2-week artist residency in Armenia, I rewarded myself with some excellent local brandy, and I stopped at the Yerevan Central Market to take home some local spices, thyme tea, and dried fruit. What intended to be a quick stop ended up taking the whole day on account of befriending one particular market vendor and his wife, who are big fans of Canada. They invited me to taste their special stash of cured meats and homemade apricot vodka. In the true spirit of positive bilateral relations, I felt obliged to accept the repeated offerings until I became aware, some hours later, that I might not be able to walk back to my apartment. Just outside the ancient mud walls of Samarkand is a rare shrine where Christians, Jews, and Muslims go to pray at a 60-foot-long crypt containing the arm of the prophet Daniel. Early Christians may have buried it there, but it was more likely by the order of a powerful Uzbek ruler, Amir Timur, also known as Tamerlane. In addition to the crypt, there are 2 other wonders on this site: a nearby spring with alleged healing properties where I saw people wash and fill up their empty plastic bottles. There is also this 600-year-old pistachio tree. Locals told me it was dead for more than a century, but in 1996 it was blessed by the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church. The following spring, the pistachio tree bloomed and has been thriving ever since. Not far from the center of Tashkent is this prolific cultural powerhouse called the Ilkhom Theatre, a center where artists of various disciplines come together regularly to discuss, experiment, create, and present work on nearly a daily basis. I had the pleasure of performing to a packed house there, collaborating with Uzbek musicians eager to share with me their folk melodies and rhythms. Amir Timur was an undefeated 14th century Turco-Mongol commander who brutally conquered all of the Muslim world, Central Asia, and parts of India. He is one of the greatest military generals of all time, despite being injured most of his life, which produced the nickname Tamerlane, referring to Timur the Lame. He is buried in Uzbekistan at the foot of his Sufi advisor, who allegedly placed curses on anyone who disturbs Tamerlane's crypt. In 1941, Joseph Stalin ordered an exhumation of Tamerlane's body for reconstruction and study. Stalin intended to reveal Tamerlane's true likeness, then disprove his hip and hand injuries in order to weaken credibility of Tamerlane's stature as a powerful leader. Ignoring all ominous warnings, Stalin's men opened the tomb on June the 21st, 1941. On June 22nd, Adolf Hitler attacked the USSR, sending 3 million Nazis in the largest and bloodiest invasion in military history. I learned this incredible story at the foot of Tamerlane's tomb with my fascinating Uzbek host, Denis. Dennis went on to explain that after about a year and a half of reconstruction, Tamerlane's injuries were proven to be historically correct. Unable to tarnish Tamerlane's reputation, the remains of the great military leader Tamerlane were sent back to Uzbekistan by air, deliberately passing near Stalingrad, a key battleground between the Soviets and Nazis. After Tamerlane was reburied, the Soviets were very soon victorious at Stalingrad, making the critical step towards ultimately defeating the Nazis. Very high on a mountain facing a gorge is this 13th century Armenian monastery known as Noravank, meaning New Monastery. As I learned more about the history of Armenia, Noravank became a symbol to me representing the unbreakable spirit of the people that I encountered again and again. The sunlight on this mountain had a special quality that gave the impression that I was standing in a mystical place. Outside, I felt like I could just extend my hand into this light and almost touch heaven. But in the foreground of this breathtaking vista was the state of the monastery, which was like most others in Armenia that I saw, only minimally repaired since the brutal destruction a century ago by the invasion of the Ottoman Empire. There are still many signs of its deeply traumatized past, for example, the evidence of execution, marked by these bullet holes I saw in the stone walls. But here I began to learn about the unbreakable spirit of this nation when I saw a young group of Armenians who received a blessing from this humble priest who sang a beautiful melody over them while illuminated by the special sunlight through the ceiling above. To me, this symbolized victory over the Ottoman invasion, and this place was once again a new monastery. This episode is named after the high-speed train I took between Tashkent and Samarkand. The rhythms and propulsion of this part were sketched while passing through desert and mountainous areas. One afternoon before a concert, I spent some quiet time paying my respects at the site honoring the victims of the Armenian genocide. At the conclusion of the visit, I stood paralyzed in front of a guest book where visitors were expected to write their reactions. After just seeing photos of heinous brutalities on people, including children the same age as my 5-year-old daughter, I was incapable of finding words that embodied enough sorrow. Instead, I made a personal oath to use my small musical gifts whenever possible to honor the people and families affected. So the final episode of Stories from Central Asia and the Caucasus intends to honor the prevailing spirit of Armenians that I first encountered at Noravank, then encountered again when I read these words at the Genocide Museum. I should like to see any power of the world destroy this race, this small tribe of unimportant people whose wars have all been fought and lost, whose structures have crumbled, literature is unread, music is unheard, and prayers are no more answered. Go ahead, destroy Armenia. See if you can do it. Send them into the desert without bread or water. Burn their homes and churches. Then, see if they will not gather, laugh, sing, and pray again. For when two of them meet anywhere in the world, see if they will not create a new Armenia.